Okay, another question.
Okay.
Are square steel beams and eco-friendly wood veneer viable apartment expansion materials?
Somebody actually asked this?
Yes.
Did they get us?
Do you guys not know the meme?
No, it's just cats.
Suddenly I feel distant from you guys.
It is never nice to meet your heroes.
I don't think I should be in the
It's
same
sweet
room
to
as you guys
disappoint.
anymore.
Well, we ended on a really T-shirts. There's that guy from Langley who drops off the
suitcases
briefcase
full of cash,
money.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
so you guys, okay, maybe we shouldn't have this on the...
Well, he's
We're
just-
not
he's
going to
just a
mention
fan.
which three-letter agency he's from.
Hey everybody, welcome to China Insider. Today we have a very special episode. I'm sitting here with the guys from China Uncensored, and it's something that you guys have asked for a very, very long time for us to do a collab together. So I'm very excited. Now this is supposed to be a very serious interview where we're going to talk about some thoughtful topics on China, but we'll see how this goes, knowing how funny they can be sometimes. So let me introduce the team here. We have Chris Chappell, we have Shelley Zhang, and Matt Guinness. Thank you guys so much for joining us here today.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
China Inside,
Yeah.
China Uncensored.
Exactly. And Matt has been like gazing at me this whole time. It makes me kind of feel pressured. I don't know if you can see my hands are kind of...
I'm actually nervous because you're putting pressure on us to make this funny.
Yeah, there we
and
go.
I am not inherently funny.
I don't know. I mean, I watched you guys for a very long time, and I think that you guys are doing a great job. So the one thing I'll say is that you guys are like my senseis when it comes to China content. So I'm kind of putting myself out there to try to be on you guys' level. And hopefully I'm learning a little thing or two from you guys and putting it for the world to see.
Well, that's really nice to hear because I've seen how much you've grown, and that has filled me with seething jealousy, and so I came here to
I was going to say that
undermine
encouraging
you, but now
tone is not what a sensei would do, right?
No.
You gotta, yeah.
The sensei must suppress the disciple.
Chinese idiom that the cat teaching the tiger, but he's got to save like one last move to make him, still the master.
that's
So what's our last move?
I guess we'll find out today because
how high can you kick?
I'm very not flexible. Okay,
got that.
Let's get into this because I know you guys have been doing this project for a while called the Hong Kong Lennon Wall, right?
Yeah.
And I'll put the link, but also I'll show it on screen. It's this place, the website you can go to, you can sign up for it. But I want to understand for people to, I don't know, maybe Chris, you can start, is what is the purpose and for this website and for Hong Kong Digital Lennon Wall?
Sure. So this month, it was the 5-year anniversary of the massive 2019 Hong Kong protests. And we were there for the 2 million person march.
Yeah.
And for context, Hong Kong is a city of 7 million people. So 2 million people took to the streets to protest the Hong Kong government and the Chinese Communist Party. And one of the things that the protest movement did is there was a Lennon wall, which is where they would use Post-it notes to stick it up on walls and have little messages of support. And eventually the Hong Kong police came and tore that all down. So we thought for the 5-year anniversary, it'd be great to make a digital version of the Lennon wall. So people all over the world could leave messages of support for Hong Kongers who are being very suppressed right now and are not able to speak freely. To see all of these messages of support on this digital Hong Kong Lennon wall.
And I think another thing that we were considering is that it's really about fighting the CCP's narrative warfare. Because when it comes to the Chinese Communist Party, right, biggest weakness, they have to lie about things. They can't tell the truth because they got to cover up all the terrible things they're doing in China, Hong Kong, around the world. So even when, you see video of, for example, like the Chinese Coast Guard brandishing axes in front of the Philippines Coast Guard, the Chinese Communist Party will release a statement saying their Coast Guard acted with, restraint and professionalism, right?
The Philippines attacked them.
Yes, exactly. So it's kind of like, do you believe your lying eyes?
Right.
So with the narrative warfare about Hong Kong, it's all about Hong Kong is stable now. It's better now. People
to
want
smile
this.
more.
Yeah, people want the CCP rule over Hong Kong, right? It was chaotic during the protests. The protesters were terrible people who were, being violent. They want to...
Backed by hostile foreign forces.
So they don't want people to remember that 2 million people marched in the streets, right? They don't want people to remember that the Hong Kong people didn't want this at all. They don't want the CCP rule. So Hong Kong Lennon Wall gives people a place to remember what happened in Hong Kong and to kind of fight that narrative battle that the CCP is waging on Hong Kong.
It would be great if your audience wanted to sign. It's HK Lennon Wall. That's LENNON wall.com.
Yep.
We did work with the team of security experts, so it doesn't track cookies or IP addresses. And we worked with a Hong Kong artist in exile to make the art. We won't say who he is because of security concerns.
And right now, as we film this episode, there's 10,164 and counting, right? Probably much higher number now than when I last looked at it. So go on to hklennonwall.com to sign up for this. Now, does it have to be a message about Hong Kong, or can it be about something else that's happening in China?
It's whatever you want to say, just, keep it relatively clean.
I mean, there are an outside number of the CCP related
Right.
comments.
But that was something they said in the protest, so it counts.
It does count.
I mean, I think it doesn't have to just be about Hong Kong, right?
No, but I think the overall spirit that we've seen so far with these 10,000 plus posts is that most of it is like messages of support for Hong Kongers from people around the world, India, Latvia, Norway,
A
Texas.
lot of former Soviet countries.
Actually, yes.
I wonder why. Something
They
wrong.
understand.
Well, the origin of the Lennon Wall was actually in the Czech Republic, or then Czechoslovakia, in Prague, and this is where the sort of Lenin thing came from, and they had painted this wall with messages that were anti-Soviet, anti-communist, and someone had painted like a portrait of John Lennon, who had just been assassinated. This was the early '80s, and so that got the name the Lennon Wall, even though it has almost nothing to do with John Lennon. It's just the timing of it.
Yeah, I do
So-
think that, to your point, David, we worked with the Hong Kong Democracy Council on the Lennon Wall, and when we talked to them about it, one of the things they said is that they appreciated that in Hong Kong during the 2019 protests, people from around the world who were visiting Hong Kong would put messages on the wall, not just about Hong Kong, but also about things that they were struggling with, the CCP in other parts of the world. Like we've seen a lot of messages from the Philippines, for example, or even dealing with their own authoritarian regimes. So there's a lot of like free Tibet,
Right.
Free Xinjiang. There's even people posting about Iran or North Korea, like different authoritarian regimes in the world on the Hong Kong Lennon Wall now. So
I mean, more than half the world's population lives under authoritarianism today. So this is a lot of there's a lot of pent up anger.
Well, I mean, I wanted to ask you guys this because you've been to the 2014 umbrella movement, you were there in 2019. Did you guys see the first time versus the second time, did you see a huge shift in terms of what the city has gone through, or in terms of the condition of democracy there between the two periods?
Well, we were actually also there in 2016, which was an interesting midpoint between those protests because 2016 was kind of a depressing time in Hong Kong because nothing was really going on. People kind of felt defeated. They didn't know where it was going. But the great thing about the 2019 one is that shows that all of that resentment was still there, just under the surface, and just needed a spark to erupt again.
And from another perspective, what I observed in Hong Kong is in 2014, we'd go to these protests and yes, they started out with a tear gas incident, but for the most part, the police were actually very polite and civilized. At the time, the Hong Kong police were considered Asia's finest police force. And largely they acted like that, even when protesters got a little bit rowdy, not violent, but just, rowdy. And even in the early part of the 2019 protests, the police were not as polite or restrained. They were definitely more threatening, but not as bad. But we went back again in October. So now the protests have been going on for many months in Hong Kong. And by then, it was everywhere you go, tear gas. You're wearing a journalist vest and a helmet that says reporter, you get tear gassed.
Yeah.
It was just no restraint. And what I saw with the Hong Kong police force is they were going from being a restrained British-style police force to an aggressive mainland-style police force, and that transition was very clear. And it's sort of a microcosm of what has happened politically in Hong Kong in the last few years, which is they've gone from being a British fair legal system, for example, to being a communist-style legal system where they have a, for the subversion cases, it's like 100% conviction rate, and
The national, there was one person who didn't get convicted.
Oh, well, there you
we
go.
It's
99.9.
But there's,
yeah,
but
just
there's-
like in mainland China.
But there's
Yeah.
over 1,800 political prisoners in jail right now in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
So you can, and that would have been unthinkable 5 years ago during the protests. And so we've seen this progression of the CCP slowly taking over each different aspect, each sort of pillar of power in Hong Kong. They take over the legislature, they take over the court system, they take over the police, they take over the media or just shut down media like Apple Daily. And so they've been very successfully the last 5 years subverting each of these sort of organs of power, so to speak, in Hong Kong to make it more and more like mainland China, and not just like any mainland China. There's like the worst parts of mainland China, like Urumqi and Xinjiang, right? Or it's just like this massive control system.
Which I just found it interesting because from back in 2014, I was still relatively not involved in like the news part. So you hear about Hong Kong, friends talk about it. But by 2019, it seemed like it only took such a short amount of time for things to just go so wrong. And then now, like in July of this year, which is coming, next week, they're going to check your phones when you go to the airport. So it almost feels like it doesn't take that long for something to just, under the CCP that is, to go really bad.
Well,
Freedom is fragile.
I mean, I would say that the CCP has been trying to undermine Hong Kong since 1997, right?
Sure.
Or before that, even in what they signed with the British, like in that document, they're already saying, well, in 50 years, we're going to completely take over. Like, we'll give you 50 years.
Even before that, though, in the UN, they got Hong Kong's status changed from a post-colonial country. So when the UN was kind of dealing with all of the former colonial powers, like most of these were able to vote and get independence. But China, when it gained access to the UN, had the status changed to Hong Kong, so it was always still a part of
basically
China.
they took it off of this list of colonial, of colonies, essentially. And so when the UN voted to give all of these former colonies the right to self-determination, so they could vote for whether they wanted to become an independent country or what, like Hong Kong and Macau were taken off that list by the CCP. So in the same vote where they were giving people the opportunity to choose for themselves, they were excluding Hong Kong and Macau because the CCP did this kind of tricky paperwork.
Legal
thing.
warfare, actually.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things, like the CCP will do something that seems like really subtle or meaningless, but they might have a strategy for 10, 20, 30 years down the line, and they're planting the seeds of it. For example, redrawing maps.
Yeah.
Right, little things like that, and people are like, "Oh, that's stupid. I don't believe that new map." But now it's a document, and then in the year 2050 or something, they're going to say, "Oh, we've had this since 2024." You can see.
That's
been our
what's
territory.
happening with the Philippines. Like I want to ask you guys about this because I felt like Hong Kong, suddenly there's violence, suddenly there's close quarter clashes. With the Philippines, few months ago, they were still shooting water guns at the boats. Now they're literally coming with spears and blades. Is that, to me, it feels like they're just doing the age-old salami slicing, trying to up the levels of escalation, but getting people used to that level slowly, right? So now, by the time we're realizing that, people are getting injured, there's ramming, there's everything. It seems like they're doing that not just with Hong Kong, but pretty much every country or entity that they consider is adversarial.
Yeah, I mean, these are short of war tactics. I would say with the recent incident where they showed up with axes and knives, I think that was a major escalation. That was definitely, I think that sent shockwaves in the Philippines. But yeah, that was a case, we also went to the Scarborough Shoal on a Filipino fishing boat a couple of years ago. By the way, I planted the China Uncensored flag there, so that officially belongs to China Uncensored. It does not belong to the Philippines or the PRC. I'm glad to finally get that out there on the public record. But yeah, it really all began, the Philippines all began like in 2012 with the Scarborough Shoal incident, where the Chinese Coast Guard kind of took the Scarborough Shoal, and the Philippines, they started moving their ships there, and so the U.S. stepped in and negotiated that both sides would leave. The Philippines left, and China stayed, and the U.S. did nothing. That was overseen by Kirk Campbell, who, what is he now? The Asia czar?
No. He's the assistant secretary.
Assistant secretary. Yeah, he
Deputy
failed
Secretary
up.
of State. Well, I think the thing with the Philippines now is it's essentially facing another Scarborough Shoal incident, right? Like this huge escalation. Now the CCP wants to see what the Philippines are going to do.
And the U.S.
And the U.S.
Right.
especially.
So this is an opportunity for the U.S. to make good on its ironclad support for the Philippines and actually show. I mean, it depends partly what the Philippine government wants from the U.S. because they may not want a lot of U.S. involvement, but if they do, the U.S. really has to step up its game and say, and show that it is not the same U.S. as it was in 2012 that's just going to back away and pretend like nothing happened so as to have good relations. And I do have hope that the U.S. Can do that because there is a very different political climate now in the U.S. With respect to China. I mean, in 2012, it was just we're still let's go to China, let's make money, and there were just a few YouTubers screaming into the wind about this is a mistake. But now there's a lot of people in the politics and social environment have a very different view of China.
Do you feel like people are stealing your job? Or what you said 10 years ago, you already warned to people, now you're like, well, look, everybody's talking about it.
No, I'm happy to see it. It proves I was right. No, but this is it's great to see just how much awareness. People, there was a time when people didn't know what I was saying when I was saying the CCP. Now people just use the CCP all the time in common parlance. It's been a huge change, and it's good because one of the issues, tying it back to the Philippines, one of the reasons I think China has escalated it so much is because the Philippine strategy has been to film everything. And as Shelley was saying earlier, this is narrative warfare, where the CCP is actually very weak. And so by exposing what China's doing to the Philippines, by filming it all, by having foreign journalists on these Filipino boats, they're showing what China's doing, and that has China really scared. And so this is an attempt by them to escalate things, still short of war, but to escalate things to such an extent that trying to get the Philippines to stop what they're doing. And I hope they don't. I mean, lots of people were shocked by seeing a Chinese Coast Guard waving an axe. One of the Filipino boatmen lost a thumb when the Chinese ship collided with his. So...
I mean, I do think that the CCP is playing the long game here. So they can afford to wait it out a little bit. What they want is to stop the Philippines from resupplying that boat, the Sierra Madre, on the second Thomas Shoal. So they can, as long as they get the Philippines to back down a little bit and be okay, well, we won't do that as much, or we won't, as they can wait it out for this boat to break apart and slide into the ocean, and then they can come in and be this is ours. So they can wait a few years if they have to. I think now it's aggressive because they're trying to stop the Philippines from exactly what Chris was saying, from fighting back, from pushing back against that narrative warfare element.
This brings me to the other question, which is you guys recently met with the formerly detained journalist in China, Cheng Lei. Did you guys? Because I saw a picture you guys had where you handed her.
We didn't meet her in person. That was just one of our team members, very clever and aggressive, sending them China Uncensored shirt.
That's very nice.
Yeah,
that's interesting because so her story is that she was detained in China for 3 years for basically, I think, passing information that the CCP deemed to now be a case of spying. But then she was released last October, and then recently she was in attendance at an event where the Chinese premier, Li Qiang, was also there. And these two Chinese embassy staffers decided to use the most ancient way of, I guess, normally they'd Photoshop everything, right? But they're just we'll just stand in front of her and block her. So she never existed at the event. How do you... Because I feel like they have no shame in some of the stuff they do, but they also don't care about the public opinion behind those actions. But then they're also, at the same time saying that we're like pandas, we're lovely, we're cute. How do you see that relationship?
Between the panda and the aggressive side?
Yeah, like can the panda be aggressive?
Do you know pandas will actually eat meat if they're pressed?
They have
to do something?
attacked humans.
They have, yeah.
I think we need to get rid of the pandas in this country. Actually, what I think we should do is we should keep the pandas. They've taken them all away. But once we get pandas back, we should keep them in greater breeding population.
Don't worry, Gavin Newsom has promised there are pandas coming to the San Diego Zoo now.
Yeah.
After Xi Jinping got such a warm welcome at APEC in San
After they
Francisco.
cleaned down all the homeless for APEC. Yeah, it shows a lot. It reveals a lot about the U.S. government and China
Yeah,
relations.
but I think your point is that pandas are evil and aggressive, right?
Well, at least the Chinese pandas. Well, I mean, but pandas are from China, so.
Pandas are from Tibet.
Tibet. I don't even know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. So.
Yeah. Well, Tibet doesn't even exist anymore, according to the latest
That's
Chinese
true.
propaganda. Their new narrative warfare is they're calling it Xizang.
Which
Yeah.
is the Chinese name for it.
Right.
But
They're hoping to just like replace the word Tibet because Tibet is associated with like people know.
Richard Gere,
Like-
Dalai Lama,
Yeah.
7 years in Tibet.
Free Tibet.
Yeah.
They don't want that kind of thing.
Remember those rock concerts in the 90s? That was like a cool thing to do, like a free Tibet concert.
Yeah.
Or was it
Richard
the-
Gere thinks his Tibet activism got him blacklisted from Hollywood.
It's probably true.
I mean, in the early 2000s, I could definitely see that being the case.
Yeah, they loved China.
Yeah, I mean, I think, so pandas are from historical Tibet, not the Tibet Autonomous Region, which is
Right.
smaller than actual Tibet was.
Right. Like if in China, if like parts of Sichuan province and Shanghai province are like still on the Tibetan plateau, and they even today have ethnically Tibetan populations, and culturally, in some ways, the last time I was there, I found Sichuan to be more Tibetan in some places than like Lhasa, because there's a propaganda effort, or like moving Han Chinese to Lhasa to sort of outpopulate the local Tibetans, but they didn't put that much effort into the historical parts, which were technically in other provinces.
Yeah,
'cause they
there's
didn't
lots
think
of
it was a big deal.
propaganda in Lhasa.
Right.
Was that a pun?
It doesn't count.
Lhasa propaganda.
Yeah, but
You just pulled a Matt.
no, it was better than that. But tying it back to your question about sort of like this, basically the hard and soft power. We spoke with Alex Josky, an Australian China researcher, and he made the point that like one of the most effective things the Chinese Communist Party did when it was talking to like U.S. officials was sort of this line of like, all right, there is this hard line in the party. We're not about that. Let's work together. Just don't criticize China. Don't take a hard stance, because otherwise that hardline side will act up, and then we're kind of stuck. So just keep things quiet, and we'll work together, and we'll make money, and it'll be fine. And that was a very effective strategy because a lot of people believed it. It was a way to kind of harmonize the idea of like, well, we see these bad things. We see this hardline Maoist kind of attitude. But like the person I'm talking to is very smiley and nice and talking about engagement. So it was a perfect way to kind of, harmonize these two conflicting things. And that's why panda diplomacy is a thing.
Yeah.
They tricked us into appeasement.
But did you guys, so you guys have been warning about this for a while.
Pandas.
Yeah.
And CCP.
Yeah, of course. But did you find it that people first did not accept this notion that they could be bad, but now people are like more accepting to that idea that the CCP is bad?
Well, we have seen in polls that in America and globally, the views of the Chinese Communist Party are on the decline. It was definitely an issue that once upon a time when we started the show, a lot of people didn't really see it, especially a lot of Westerners who were having the experience of being able to go to China and have a great time, because it was a lot more welcoming to foreigners back then. And many businesses were at the stage of they were making money in China. Granted, what was going on behind the scenes and what came out later is that a lot of intellectual property theft was being stolen, and that short-term gain often resulted in disaster for these companies. So there was this period where things seemed good, and that's when we started the show, because we wanted to.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of
People.
people who would prefer to not look at the problems because like Chris mentioned, people who are, if you go to China, right, and you enjoy, like you go study in China or you go teach English in China, you don't really want to think about the fact that you're living in this terrible authoritarian regime.
I mean, that even goes back to George Bush Sr., who spent a lot of time in China. And when the Tiananmen Square massacre happened, it came out later that like he sent a secret delegation to China that month to tell them that, don't worry, we won't let this get in the way of U.S.-China relations.
Yeah,
like the month of the massacre.
It's kind of stunning to think about exactly all of the ways that we've collaborated and propped up the CCP over the years. But I think also the American people, there was just a lot of just ignorance about it. I mean, I remember talking to friends about China and they'd be like, well, China's democracy, right? Because they have a president, the words that they use, President Xi Jinping or whatever, it sounds like a democracy. So there are just a lot of things that people didn't know about China. And I think now post-COVID especially, people...
And post-Hong Kong.
And yeah, so it's a lot of, suddenly you realize that actually it does affect you in a lot of ways.
People in my comments tell me that I should go to Shanghai and experience the beautiful skyline and enjoy the beautiful scenes.
You won't be able to see it from your jail cell.
That's true.
I think that people did feel that way in Shanghai until the COVID lockdown in Shanghai, right? And then it was like you can't see the beautiful skyline when you can't leave your apartment.
Yeah. But that is also a great example of Communist Party propaganda. Yes, they have put a lot of money into Shanghai and Beijing, and Shanghai looks great. Most of the country does not look like that. There was a Chinese economist who came out a while ago saying that 1 billion people in China make less than $300 a month, I believe it was.
That's
that was Li Keqiang.
Li Keqiang,
yeah. Who died of natural causes peacefully and normally, as happens. But yeah, so China is still a very poor country, which is totally different from how the CCP portrays it with, look at Shanghai. We lifted 700 million people out of poverty. It's 1 billion people. Less than $300 a month. That's not a prosperous society.
Well, no, they did it by changing the definition of poverty.
Yeah.
Which is, again, part of the narrative warfare that Shelley talks about. They literally changed it. So now you can have you can have less money and no longer be considered in poverty. It's great.
That's very nice when you can change everything. Okay, let's move on to some fan questions. So I did go on my YouTube community and I asked people to give me their question that they want to ask you guys the most. So I found some of these, not all of them. I just found some of them. First question, is Chris Chappell an Agent Smith in disguise?
It's the other way around. No. Agent Smith is a Chris Chappell in disguise.
Matrix Uncensored. Interesting. Okay, what company should be avoided by Americans who do not want to support the CCP?
Temu, Shein, TikTok.
Yeah, I mean...
Those are the big ones.
Those are the big ones. I think try to buy not made in China.
Yeah, there's definitely the Chinese controlled companies directly.
Yeah.
As Chris mentioned, but also many American retailers, from Amazon to Pottery Barn to Walmart or whatever, are selling some portion of their products made in China. And I think this is the part where we can also make a difference, but it takes a little more effort than just I'm not going to buy from Temu ever, which is a good start. But also when you go to Walmart and you look at your packages, where is this made? And it's, if it says China, see if you can find an alternative brand that's not made in China. And the more people that do this, the more American retailers are going to feel that pressure or that incentive to stop stocking made in China stuff.
We've been considering selling some basic things like bags and whatnot that, China Uncensored brand, but also definitely not made in China. So we're trying to get some alternatives on the market.
What about apps?
What apps? So this is something I'm beginning to research. So I'll probably have an episode out with more detail later. But there's a lot of concern about Chinese-made video games, particularly on mobile phone. There's a lot of concern over Genshin Impact, which I know is a very popular game. So it's always good. If you're on the App Store, it'll give information about where the developers are based, and just take a look if it's China, because if it's in China, that means they have a Communist Party cell in their company. That's
Sometimes
required
they
by
also
law.
try to hide it, right, with that app Newsbreak.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
We just did that episode on that. They try to make it seem like it is not a Chinese company, actually.
Did I tell you YouTube age restricted that video?
Oh,
For
what?
They didn't say.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, the thing is that you don't always know what is behind it. So it could be that there's propaganda in the game, but a lot of times they don't do it that way because it's too easy to pick up on. And it'll be real subtle things like it'll track your data, or it'll request permission to access things on your device, and you just click accept because you don't really think about it. And then they're mining data. They're using it ultimately to sort of learn about the behavior of Americans and shopping habits, personal preferences, maybe get your contacts list from your phone. I mean, TikTok is gathering all sorts of crazy amounts of data. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of these video games also collected data that seems irrelevant to the game, but obviously the party wants to collect. And all they do, they just work through these totally private companies, and they just, because they have a Communist Party cell, as you mentioned, and they just, one of the things that they make the company do is just collect the data.
Yeah.
Clearly, we also need to make a Made in America China Uncensored game. That will be the most popular game, and everyone can just play that.
And what would be the theme of this game?
I don't know. Leave your comments below. Let me know what kind of China Uncensored. If PewDiePie can make his own video games, we can make a video game.
If Alex Jones can make...
What's the matter, Shelley? I'm dropping gold here, and you're just...
I'm just thinking that PewDiePie is a slightly bigger gamer. His gaming
I have
channel
a
is
gaming
slightly
channel.
larger than
I will
ours.
soon have the biggest gaming channel on YouTube. Gamers Unbeaten. We're unbeaten.
Let me ask you guys this. Any specific event that took place in Tiananmen Square, if there was anything?
I have heard of nothing happening in Tiananmen Square, especially not in June 4th, 1989.
Or May 35th.
May 35th.
Now, when I was touring Beijing, there was a tour guide who was herself a college student, and I asked her about Tiananmen, and she also confirmed that nothing happened there.
Didn't you have an experience where somebody you knew saw footage when they came to the U.S. and were like, "What's that?"
Well, it was somebody who, my personal experience is I went to the Liberty Bell with my sister a number of years ago, and they had this video that was playing at the Liberty Bell about how the Liberty Bell essentially still symbolizes freedom to people around the world. And in this montage video, there was video of the Tiananmen Square protests, and there was a huge Chinese tour group there at the same time as that. And this video was playing in Chinese for them, and I heard one young woman lean over and whisper to her friend, "Is that China?" Because it's obviously Tiananmen Square, right? And she had never seen the footage of the Tiananmen Square protest. So yeah, that happens all the time.
They memory hold Tiananmen inside China.
Well, recently there was a Thai streamer that went to Tiananmen. She tried to live stream there, and the cops came.
Oh, really?
And basically, nothing happened there, so I wasn't sure why she wasn't allowed to stream in front of
I
a...
wonder if she even knew what was going on.
Yeah.
It was like that guy who tried to promote
lipstick king,
Yeah, the chocolate
cake.
tanks or something.
Tank
Yeah. Whoops.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with Chris and then Shelley and Matt. What inspired you personally to start making videos about China? Would love to hear the original story. This is from a fan.
Okay. So I saw that China, I saw what people today kind of see, that the Chinese Communist Party is a real active threat to the US, to the world, and nobody really was paying attention or was interested or cared. And so I sort of had the idea, maybe if I did kind of a daily show type thing with some humor about China, maybe people would be interested. And they were.
I was inspired by Chris. I had separately always thought it would be great to have a daily show about China, but I was like, who's going to make this? I can't think of anyone who's going to make this. And then Chris was making it, and Chris and I actually met through my sister.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had started doing a few videos, and I had another full-time job, so I would just kind of like talk to him and like, work on some
Bounce
scripts
ideas,
and
yeah.
bounce off ideas off each other. Back when you were doing you were basically a one-man band, right? Like you were,
Yeah, writing, editing,
yeah,
doing
everything. So yeah, and so I do think I was inspired by you.
Wow. China Insider first.
Wow. Exclusive content.
Yeah.
Make that into a YouTube short.
Yeah, I feel good.
Oh, you're looking at me. I'm just subversive by nature. I just thought it's fun to expose the CCP.
Wow. That's how I think too. They're like, why did you start this channel? I was like, I want to talk bad about them.
It is fun. Well, yeah, so in 2012, when we started the show, this was just as China was building the artificial islands,
Okay.
which was just such a crazy thing. Like, they're building fake islands and claiming territory. See, this is our land now. So I was very happy when I got to go to the Scarborough Shoal and claim it as my territory, which it is my territory, legally speaking.
We got to get on the building the artificial islands part, though.
Yeah.
That's true.
Maybe the CCP has some dredgers we can borrow.
Now, when you said we'd gone to the Scarborough Shoal a couple of years ago, you said that earlier. Do you know how long ago
my God, that
2016 was?
It was like 3 years ago. Time stopped because of COVID.
It does feel like that a little bit.
Yeah.
Someone wants to know, are you guys funded by laundered money their parent company has been charged with?
We don't have a parent company. The funding of the show comes primarily from fans on Patreon or locals. We get a little bit of YouTube ad revenue when they're kind to us, and they don't age-restrict videos about Newsbreak.
And we also have sponsors, so sometimes like Surfshark or Incogni will sponsor our episodes.
Which are great companies. We don't get a lot of sponsors because as soon as they find out what we're about, like a YouTube show with 2 million subscribers normally would have lots of subscribers. Or sponsors. Thank you, Shelley. Very few people want to work with us.
Yeah, and sometimes like a sponsor will like reach out like, oh, you have 2 million subscribers. Like, would you like to work with our brand? And I'll write them back and I'll be like, your product looks great, but first please watch our videos so you know what our channel's about.
Yeah.
And then like they ghost me.
Oh yeah.
That happens way too much.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's basically like it's Patreon and locals contributions, YouTube ad revenue, direct product like sponsorship, and that's 99%. The other 1%, less than 1%, is merchandise like T-shirts.
There's that guy from Langley who drops off the
suitcases
briefcase
full of cash,
money.
yeah.
Oh, so you guys, okay, maybe we shouldn't have this on the.
Well, he's
We're
just,
not
he's
going to
just a
mention
fan.
which 3-letter agency he's from.
Wait, I thought there was only one that's funding all of the foreign operations.
Well, the NED, right?
Too many conspiracies online.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I think that we all should get a little bit of cash from the C, the I, and the,
I probably would turn it down. I don't actually want to be
Imagine the
government
strings
funded.
that would be attached to that.
That is true. I think
Right.
there was somebody we've had on the show a couple of times, Grant Newsham, and he wrote a book about China. And he mentioned us in it as like, well, if the U.S. government wants to see how you do like propaganda against the CCP, watch China Uncensored. Like they do this on a shoestring budget, and he was essentially the U.S. government should fund us in some way, and we're like, well, but they shouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, precisely the reason why we want to remain our own like private company. We have no parent company. We have no any other thing. It's just a small company owned by the three of us. And the reason we do that is precisely so no one else can pressure us editorially to cover things
Or
in a
not
different
cover
way.
things. I mean, I think
Or
we would be
it's
a
actually
lot.
that, yeah.
We would be a lot less efficient if the U.S. government was involved.
Oh
That's
yeah,
probably
it would take 100 times the resources to produce 1/100th the result. That's how the bureaucracy works.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So if you're watching, please join the China Uncensored 50-cent army on Patreon. You can contribute as much as you want, or even as little as $1 a day at patreon.com/China Uncensored.
$1 an episode.
What did I say?
$1 a day.
That's also okay.
That means
Yeah.
But that's not the
You have to
normal.
do some math.
or you just make episodes every single day. Then.
Well, what do you think about that, Chris? An episode every day.
Oh God! Hey, it's less tiring than when I was doing everything.
That's true.
All the time. We have a great team. It's not just the three of us. We also have a great team of writers and video editors. So there's a lot of heroes on the team. I'm still kind of calling myself a hero there, trying to sound humble. There's a lot of people who deserve credit. It's not just me, the face of the show. That's a better way to phrase it.
Okay, favorite hot dog topping, or if you don't like hot dog, favorite pizza topping.
Wrapped in bacon.
Wrapped in bacon.
Mustard.
I'm somewhat embarrassed, but it's actually ketchup.
Why is that embarrassing?
Okay, when I was 5,
Oh God! See you later. I'll be back in 20 minutes.
I was at a friend's house and his mom was serving hot dogs for dinner, and I asked for ketchup, and she's like, "That's so lower class."
Oh man,
And I'm
that
like-
has stayed with you.
Like it traumatized
Wow.
me. And now every time, because I still want the ketchup, but then I feel this pang of guilt for like disappointing my friend's mother. So
Don't rise up, ye hot dog ketchup-loving people. Fight the bourgeoisie who tell you that you can't have those kind of toppings.
that's right.
You guys know in China, like when I was little, having a hot dog, like ketchup and everything, is like considered luxury food.
Really?
Or so this was back in like early 2000s. If Pizza Hut was still like a big thing in China,
I heard
maybe it's
about
still even
that.
a big thing today. But I saw these commercials about pizza on TV, and I actually cried because I was like, my dream as a child or when I grew up is to taste pizza.
From Pizza Hut.
Yeah,
Have you
must have been
fulfilled that dream?
disappointing.
it's disgusting.
I hope you're not lactose intolerant.
I think I am.
That's fine. Every time we travel somewhere around the world, we always make the mistake of ordering pizza, like to our hotel room one night when we're too busy.
Yeah.
And it's always a mistake.
I feel like the best weird pizza we had was definitely the boba pizza in Taiwan.
Yes, that was actually the only one that didn't make me sick.
Yeah, I remember we got back from the Scarborough Shoal, so we'd gone out of Subic Bay, right? And then it ended up being a much longer trip than we expected.
It was 3 days out on the open ocean.
And then we come back.
We were told it would be 12 hours both ways.
Yes, that was not true. And then we get back, it's like 9 o'clock at night. There's nothing open, so we...
Not a lumpia in sight.
So we ordered, was it
Domino's.
Was it Domino's? I
Yeah.
thought it was Pizza Hut, but we ordered...
I thought it was pizza.
In the Philippines.
Anyway,
Yeah, yes, it was Pizza Hut,
and
I think.
It
Yeah.
had some weird toppings. And
think that's normal
it
toppings.
didn't sit well with us.
Well, like we were out on the open ocean for 3 days just eating the fish, fat from the ocean. And we felt great. And we got back to land.
And you had pizza, and that
We
was
had
a
pizza,
big
and
mistake.
that was bad.
Yeah.
All right.
So what were we talking about?
Next question. This is very interesting. Why are there so many magicians in China that make people disappear?
Is that who's behind it?
Oh my God, there's David Copperfield all along.
It's just rogue magicians who don't know how to control their magic.
Or this is now sounding more like Discworld, right? Like it's just
A little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, another question.
Okay.
Are square steel beams and eco-friendly wood veneer viable apartment expansion materials?
Somebody actually asked this?
Yes.
Did they get us?
Do you guys not know the meme?
No.
So on TikTok, so in China, right?
Firstly, we're not on TikTok.
Okay,
so
Yes.
But this
Go
started on TikTok. It's all over the place now. But
Okay.
they make these like AI voiced 3D coffin room design videos featuring this guy named Little John. He's in like a full green and red like Chinese outfit, and he would live in these like coffin rooms, like 1 by 1 square foot.
But he's an AI?
No, the whole video is AI.
Okay.
And basically, every video features the same design where they put up these like square steel beams called galvanized square steel, and then he puts eco-friendly wood veneers on top of it, and then it expands his space, and he's able to live in these like tiny homes.
So
This became a meme, and so it's very popular online. I guess you guys are not caught up with the.
I know.
I feel old suddenly.
I do like galvanized steel. I've always said that.
What about eco-friendly wood veneer?
This is new to me. I kind of think green, all that. It's a communist plot to destroy America.
probably that eco-friendly wood veneer is made in China.
By Uyghur slaves.
Yeah, with the wood like illegally taken from like the old growth forest in Indonesia.
You guys are not in tune with the stuff, right? Because there's another one. I don't think you guys know this either. They're selling these mobile homes, like tiny box homes that they will ship everywhere around the world.
Oh, I've seen those.
You've seen those? Okay. They're like $20,000.
Yeah.
And you can get them shipped to you.
Well, that could solve California's homelessness issue.
Yeah, except you also need to own land, so.
Right, but the thing is, like, their entire promotion is, like, their Instagram page is just skits of where the guy cheats on the girl, where the girl cheats on the guy. And that somehow is their understanding of Western, like...
You nailed it.
I actually
promotion.
do think that works, right? Like we're talking about them.
Yeah.
It's just like sometimes I think that the really terrible Chinese state-run propaganda, like they're doing it on purpose. Like they have to be doing these like really terrible James Bond skits
Oh, yeah.
terribly on
I remember
purpose,
those.
right?
Yeah.
Like they're not just thinking that this is actually funny. They think that they're going to make it so bad that then it's going to make the front page of the New York Times.
Or is it that they're holding a mirror to us and we don't like what we see?
Deep. All right, last question. Favorite Chinese meme or ironic Chinese meme?
Memes. Chinese memes, I don't know.
I mean, the lying flat
That's
thing
pretty-
Is that a
comes to
meme?
mind.
Is lying flat a meme? What is a meme?
Cutting chives is the meme.
Cutting chives. I have not heard of that.
Or cutting leeks.
There's like the river crab thing. Is that a meme?
Oh God, that's so old.
That's old.
That is from 2012.
So, guys, you've seen it. They don't really understand our generation's jokes. What's funny to us is not funny to them.
My bones are dust.
I do enjoy the cutting leeks thing. I mean, this is not a meme, but I'm currently just watching a lot of, videos where somebody does like the Chinese imperial dramas, but
Yeah.
reenacted with cats. It's great. They're on Instagram.
We're from the generation where the internet was for cats.
Yeah.
It was pre-memes. It's just cats.
Suddenly, I feel distant from you guys.
It is
I don't-
never nice to meet your heroes.
I don't
It's-
think I should be in the
it's sweet
same
to
room with you guys
disappoint.
anymore.
Well, we ended on a really
Yeah.
low note. I'm sorry.
But you guys should still go check out everyone watching HK
We're-
Lennon Wall, right?
yeah. I mean, we're cool.
We should have
We're
made
with
it a meme.
How do we make it a meme?
I think that's actually, if
You ha-
anybody could figure out how to make something a meme,
Uh-huh.
they would
They
unlock
would
the
be the
secrets
most
of the
powerful
internet.
person in the
yes,
universe.
they would.
I was going to say you hire a 22-year-old with a communications degree as your consultant, pay them $125K a year, and then give them a TikTok account, and then they'll get it
I've
done.
seen that go so bad so many times. I don't recommend that we do that.
Anything you guys want to say to the viewers of both shows as we sign off?
Yes, stop watching David, just watch me.
Thank you.
See, I think he would have been a lot more gracious if he didn't now feel attacked and old.
Exactly.
See, that's why I saved it till the end, because I knew you guys.
Yeah, if you had led with that, this
Yeah.
would have been a very different interview.
I think you guys would have walked out.
Well, I mean, it's hard to get up at this age. The knees in the back.
All right, well, that's it today. My conversation with the team from China Uncensored. If you enjoy the content, subscribe to our channels. Put the link in the description if you're new, and check out Chris's channel. And see you guys next time when I want to consult you guys about something that's
We could do this. We could eat hot dogs
yeah.
with ketchup.
Yes, I would like that. I feel validated.
Thank you for coming today. Appreciate you guys, and thanks for watching. Bye bye.